Romance in video games is not necessarily a new idea, and with better technology, developers are able to better create plausible emotional plot lines in games based around romance, whether it's part of the main story or something that you create via interactions as the player character, a la Mass Effect or Dragon Age. On this episode, just in time for Valentine's Day, we take a look at some of the more memorable romantic storylines in video games, and take a look at the idea as a whole, next on Downloadable Content. Hello everyone, welcome to Downloadable Content. I'm Brian, and with me we have Ronnie.
Hi.
And we have Dejah, once again, 2 in a row for you.
Loving you is easy 'cause you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
and a musical interlude at that.
Crappy singing, you're welcome, world.
There you go. There's just fine nuggets of wonderful content here. A very fine, sophisticated program.
You're gonna lose all your viewers.
All 5 of them? It's only been 8 years. I mean, whatever.
Well,
it's what we do. But, you know, having Ronnie on this episode ensures that we at least have one Ron on Downloadable Content.
Well, you know, I gotta do a couple episodes like this if I'm gonna catch up.
Yeah, you do. You better hope Ron takes a sabbatical for the next 8 years. However, if you want to catch up, so that's all right. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about romance in video games on this episode. I mean, this episode, if the stars line up properly, you should be listening to this episode on Valentine's Day. Just how the schedule worked out. So happy Valentine's Day, one and all. Hopefully, you're having a great day. Before we dive into today's discussion, just want to remind every single one of you out there that downloadable content can be found on our website, dlcpodcast.com. Every episode can be found there, as well as iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. You can also find out upcoming episodes, upcoming recordings. Let us know if you want to be in on an episode. Give us feedback. Give us ideas for future episodes. It's all there, dlcpodcast.com. So yes, today's discussion, we're going to be talking about the idea of romance in video games and talking about memorable romantic storylines in video games. I'm sure we've got some. I know there are a few obvious ones out there. And, you know, as I mentioned in the intro, this is not necessarily a new idea. Since video games have existed, developers have tried to find ways to convey the idea, whether it's in sprite format or now with current technology, you know, full video cutscenes, dialogue, spoken
body
dialogue.
capturing.
Yep. All that fun stuff. All in trying to tell a story, all to create emotion. And, you know, I thought about that being a pretty good topic to dive into, because if you are playing a narrative-driven game, or a game where you, as the player character, can create a romantic plotline or subplot, and I immediately think of the BioWare games that they've made a career on doing that. For example, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, as I mentioned in the opener. It either can, you know, you either can do it really well or you can do it really badly.
Well, I mean, you go ahead and do it.
All right. Well, I was just gonna say, I think Dragon Age did it pretty well, but I didn't even go that. I went, what? I get to make my own character, and they can, like, get with pretty much, all except for one of the, players that you can select from that, and, like, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna just bang all of them. And I'm
I
gonna
was
take
the
this one
romantic.
person and go have a foursome with the two innkeepers because I can. So and then when what was her name? Pardon me for this, Morgan, something like that. The cool witch chick. It's been a while since I've played it. When she started basically saying, "Yeah, well, I don't want to be physical with you until you commit to just me," I was like, "Sorry, baby doll, I can't do this." It felt It was fun. More fun than it probably should have been.
Morrigan was correct.
Morgan? Okay.
And Lily. Yes.
Go on, Ronnie.
I was saying Liliana was who I romanced in Dragon Age.
Dejah brings up an interesting point, though, because, here you are, if you're the player character, trying to basically just bed everybody. The idea of rejection in a game like that is also an interesting design choice to maybe sort of remind the player that, hey, there are things you do might have consequences.
Well, it kind of makes me think of The Sims, where whenever I would play that, I would basically try to make my own soap operas, and my little person that I made would basically just sleep with everybody. And then I just tried to make sure that they were never around each other, my different partners, because you can't really easily do a polycule in The Sims. They always fight.
Aww.
It's a shame. If I want to love other people, I can. It's okay.
So yeah,
ethical.
the BioWare games, their romance options are really an outgrowth of the earlier pixel RPGs that first brought romance into video games.
That's where I thought.
Or at least brought strong romantic themes into video games for the first time, because there were always people who saw the romance between Mario and Peach in Mario 1 with the tiny pixels.
And figured, well, why not? Let's expand upon that. And so in doing some research for this episode, trying to find, some of video gaming's, like, quote-unquote greatest love stories or, romantic plot lines, I'm just going to address the obvious ones right off the bat.
Okay.
The first two that stuck out to me, just as a player, were games that Final Fantasy, specifically 8 and 10. With the whole Laguna Renoa storyline in 8, and of course Yuna and Titus in 10. Which, for me, as a younger gamer, were some of the first real examples of a majorly narrative game having this really important sort of romance as the game developed, as the story developed. Because, let's see, we're talking Final Fantasy VIII, that was a PS1 game, so I was in my mid-teens. And Final Fantasy X on the PS2 a little bit later, so maybe it's the onset of puberty I started noticing these things, who knows?
I could never get into the whole Renoa Squall perfect epic love thing. They did nothing for me.
And you kind of have to buy into that to like Final Fantasy.
Well, that's why I didn't really like it.
But,
it had other issues with it, but
even before that,
if I had shipped them really hard, then I probably could have looked past the other things that just didn't interest me with it. But nope.
But yeah, even before that, Final Fantasy VI had romances for a couple characters throughout it, but primarily
like the entire opera.
Yes, but I was going to say more Locke and how the entire plot of his character is focused around his lost love Rachel, and eventually moving on to love again with Celes.
And then there's Ultros and everyone.
Okay, yes, we'll go with the tentacle. That's fun.
Yeah.
Please don't horrify me.
What? He's asexual. It's
but
fine.
Also, even before that, while it was less of a romance and more of a relationship, you also have Final Fantasy IV with Cecil and Rosa, who were in a long-term relationship before the game ever started, and their relationship continues throughout the game.
Right. I mean, it's part of, Cecil's own motivations throughout the game as well.
And hell, that's one of the only games I can ever think of where the two characters are already together as the game starts and stay together throughout it.
Yes.
For Final Fantasies, yes.
And so, I mean, for me, that was, one of the earliest, probably one of the first few times I actually noticed the idea of romance as a plot element in a game. Something that not necessarily felt tacked on, but actually,
I think the first for me would have been Lufia 2, which is a game where the main character... I know Dejah's heard me talk about it, but neither of you two have played Lufia before, right?
Correct. I have not.
Okay. In Lufia, you go on an adventure with your party. It's a fantasy. But the big thing is, halfway through the game, you win, or at least you think you do. And then it cuts to a couple years later where you're married to the person you were with in the first half. You have a child, and the enemies return and kidnap your child, and you get to be badass battle parents going to get your child back.
Ooh.
Which I want to see more of that kind of stuff. Like, not every... Like, 20-year-olds and 15-year-olds aren't the only ones who can save the world.
So doesn't that sound kind of interesting, Brian?
That sounds very interesting. It does not take the Disney formula of, okay, we have to kill a parent right off, and
nope,
everyone's an orphan.
I should turn my phone off.
Well, speaking of first
you just opened the door.
I did.
So, I was kind of, I guess, late to playing video games. I was 12 when my parents got a PlayStation 1 for the family. So I never had a NES or a SNES or Sega or anything. And my first RPG... Alright, technically it was Final Fantasy VII. I rented it from Blockbuster for 5 days, but I barely got... I got to June on, and that was it. But my first game that I actually bought and completed, and it's just why I wanted to be on this episode, because I wanted to make sure that it got talked about, was the port with new animated cutscenes of Lunar, the Silver Star Story, which that's all about romance. Like, Alex and Luna... Whether they're officially an item per se at the beginning, I guess one could argue, but they're basically inseparable. They kind of talk like an old married couple. It's obvious that they have a thing for each other, even if I guess they don't ever really admit to it until much later, because spoilers, I suppose.
They're not together when it starts. If you say they're together when it starts, then every random anime childhood friend couple is together at the beginning of the anime.
Yeah, well, alright. I don't know. Again, the way that they talk, I never really take it as their childhood friends as much as they've been together. That's just the way that I perceived it when I was 12. Excuse me, sir. But, yes, he wants to become a Dragon Master, but once Galleon's oh, by the way, I'm evil, ha ha ha, and he takes her and turns her into this dark lady thing.
Can I, one second, let me interrupt
yes.
for 1 second, because Brian didn't say this at the beginning. just to warn all the people, we are probably going to have massive spoilers for various games in this episode. So if you hear us mention the name of a game and you haven't played it yet and you want to, you should probably click off now.
One could say, I guess it's a trophy game, so... Like, I didn't see that coming when I was 12, but again, I hadn't really played anything before, and I was just getting into anime at the time, so obviously Evil Guy didn't seem so obvious to me. But I feel like everybody else was like, yeah, no, that guy's evil. Yeah. But, that game made me cry at the end. I really...
Oh.
Because he ends up giving up, like, all of it. Like, it basically, like... I guess, to compare it to something, it would be like if at the end of a Zelda, in order to save Zelda, Link, like, gave up his Master Sword and all of his stuff, like, gave up all of his power to save her, and then they were just regular schmucks, and they went back to a tiny little town and just lived their life because their love is so pure. This is basically what he does, and she's like, no, don't do this, it's not worth it, I'm not worth it, and he's like, yes you are, and my bitter heart is so squishy for it. Because not that many couples get me, you have to write something really well and have me really like the characters for me to be like, yes, I really want these people together.
Oh, for Dejah to have all the feels. Every one of them.
Like, alright, yeah, they're together, that's just a factual statement. Okay. Like, you know, but Alex and Luna, they're actually OTP.
I can just see you now at the other end here, just with little hearts bubbling all around your head. Just yeah, that's sort of sugarful glee. Just before we actually started recording, a friend of mine and also occasional panelist Jeremiah, he brought up a small list of games that stuck out to him. One of them I've never played, but I've heard of it. Catherine.
Oh yes. Yeah. Oh, you know, we own Catherine. That's what I was going to talk about.
Well, I will give that to you because I've heard of it many times. I've never played it. So,
okay,
interesting game.
I have not beaten Catherine. We got about 3/4 of the way through it before I think inventory at work threw me off, and I never ended up coming back to it. But I will. But it is a very well written game with mature themes, and by mature themes, I don't mean like blatant sex like you'll get in hentai games, though there is sex in the game. But it deals very honestly with adult relationships, with, you know, not seeing eye to eye with the person you're with, you know, imagining things could be different, cheating.
Fears of commitment,
yep.
Like, basically, I forget the guy's name, correct me if you know what Vincent. It is, Vincent. And then there's Catherine with a C, and Catherine with a K. And Catherine with a K, I believe, is the one who he's been dating for a long time. I don't remember if they're engaged or about to get engaged, but he's sort of having this cold feet thing. She's kind of pressuring him into marriage, and he's like, I don't know, what about my bachelorhood? And then he goes to a bar
ready
with
for
his
more
friends.
Of a commitment that he's not willing to do.
And she's like more serious and kind of has that sort of like button-up businesswoman kind of look.
And
one
Catherine
could say
with
perhaps
a C.
she has resting bitch face, quote quote, like. And then he goes to a bar, he gets super drunk with his friends, and he wakes up, and then there's this cute, perky blonde with twisty hair, pigtails, and her name is Catherine with a C.
Yes, and she basically represents the freedom and the way to get away, and he ends up arguably cheating on his girlfriend because you never actually see it, which becomes important when you realize she is literally a succubus from hell that has been sent to corrupt him. Which is what you get over the course of the game.
And like at the end of each, it's basically a puzzle game. Like you have to move blocks around and stuff.
So the beginning, the daytime portions of the game, while you're awake, are where the story happens, and the relationship stuff, all the rest of it. Then when you go to sleep at night, you get kicked into this demon world where you have to puzzle solve to progress. And that's where the game
you're dressed like a ram.
And it's all like all the stuff in this nightmare world are all representations of your subconscious.
Like one of the bosses is this like baby, like the whole idea of, oh, what if, like, you know, what if I was a father and responsibility and all this stuff, like a lot of really weird and kind of creepypasta stuff.
Yeah, and depending on the choices you make, you can either end up with Catherine, you can end up with either Catherine or neither, or if you get the true Catherine of the Sea ending, you can kill the Satan himself basically and become the new king of hell with Catherine by your side.
Also, so going back, sorry.
It sounds like if Silent Hill had more romance in it.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, not quite that dark, but definitely, because it's like a spin-off of the Persona games that are a spin-off of other games, and it just Atlas keeps spinning off.
The bosses in Catherine could absolutely be out of Silent Hill, such as the monster vagina with teeth that comes after you.
I don't remember that. I might have not been at the house for that one. I know one of them is Catherine with a K coming after you with like a giant fork.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of each puzzle level, you get to the top of the thing that you're climbing up, and you go into almost like a little confessional booth, and there's two ropes, and it gives you this sort of moral question. I mean, it's kind of basically to, again, no matter, or depending on which one you do, you know, in classic game morality meter stuff, push one way or the other, and it's really obvious which way.
I'll actually say this. Dejah, I know, already knows this, but for Brian, the Catherine is actually part of the Shin Megami Tensei / Persona, that game world.
Oh, okay.
So like, it very tenuously connected. It takes place in the same universe as Persona. Vincent actually makes a guest appearance in Persona 3, I believe. But it uses the same morality system as the Shin Megami Tensei games, with your choices either representing order or chaos. Though it's not as well done as the Shin Megami Tensei games.
My biggest question will be like, it's okay to cheat on your partner, yes or no, and like
my biggest complaint with it was the morality system is very weak. Which, considering it comes from the Shin Megami Tensei games, which have a extremely strong morality system, a very well done one, like that's the morality system in that is where most games in the modern day got it from, because they've been doing it since like 94. So Catherine's morality system, in comparison to the rest of the series, is actually kind of a disappointment.
Okay.
But other than that, it's a very well done, well written game with strong themes of relationships and human fears that you never see explored in any video games ever.
Which is why I thought it was really cool, because again, most games are going to go either with the whole chase concept of they're towing around each other. Will they get together? Won't they? Yay! It's the end. They got together, and like we never see the reality of being in a relationship with another person, because nobody usually wants to deal with that.
And it's getting a sequel,
which I'm looking forward to.
The original is also getting a remaster.
Probably to remind people that it was even a game, because it was like a big deal when it first came out, but it's been a while.
But Ronnie, you bring up an interesting point. So why do you think that other developers don't tackle the more negative or harsher elements of romance in video games?
Well, I suppose the question is, why in the movie industry was an R rating considered a death knell? Because it severely limits your demographics, and it cuts off a portion of the audience. Having adult themes that children wouldn't necessarily understand narrows your audience down severely. also, it narrows your audience because adults that still see video games to this day as more childlike thing, even if they play games, there are still parents, there are still adults who see it as a kid's thing that they still enjoy, and they look strangely at some of what hardcore gamers play right now, which seems weird considering how big Call of Duty is, but I run into these people at work. Like, they still exist, and this kind of game, like, it cuts off them, and it cuts off kids under a certain age, so you have severely limited what you're going to be doing. Now,
I would say even on top of that, you have people who might be, like, you take all of them out, but then you have people who are adults, except that, oh, I still like playing games, but games are their escape, games are their entertainment, and they might go, well, I don't want to be playing with somebody's bullshit relationship stuff. I got that enough in my own life. I want escapism.
Atlas was able to do Catherine because Atlas makes niche games. They typically use they typically use older engines or things that have already been used so that they don't have to pour tons of money into development, and they bring people in with these niche ideas that they don't need to make tons of money to make their money back. And that's how they're able to do things like Catherine or like the earlier Persona games before they blew up.
And then if they get really successful, then that's just bonus, because I think Catherine did really well. But it was mainly because people went, oh, hey, this is a really cool, different puzzle game. And yeah, it deals with this other stuff. But because, like, I feel like if, I don't know, this is a really bad example. Like, if Final Fantasy was suddenly going to have characters who are in their mid-20s or 30s, and a big theme was going to be dealing with, like, divorce or difficult relationships, I wonder if a lot of people would be like, I'm into this. Because, again, people generally like the chase. Like, with sitcoms, for example, it's always, will they, won't they? Or on and off again relationships. And at the finale, that's when they get married or they finally confess their love.
Well, that's the on again, off again is more the fact that sitcoms aren't really allowed to progress the storyline. Like, everything needs to reset at the end of the episode. So unless they're going to be together when it already starts, they're never really going to get together, at least not for a whole long period of time. Which, don't get me wrong, there are sitcoms that have not gone that route, but traditionally that's the way sitcoms work.
But anyway, I feel like a lot of games kind of do that too. I don't know. Maybe not the on-off again thing, obviously, because there's only so much time, but like in an RPG, oh, we're getting our crew together. Wait, hey, that little mage over there is really cute. Maybe we'll get together by the end. As opposed to, I'm in my group and I'm going to bring my, romantic partner with me, and we're going to go then, and you can see what our either healthy, mature relationship looks like, or, sometimes we argue and this, that, the other thing, as opposed to starting from nothing and then ending up with squishy romance. But I'm the salty person who kind of wishes that sometimes there was more variety there.
And, it was also, while doing my research for this episode, just taking a look, there was, have either of you played Gone Home?
No, I have not.
I have not.
I own it. I have not played it yet.
Well, I won't spoil it for you then. So I'm going to leave that there. I really, as short as Gone Home is, it's an experience. I'm not going to ruin it for you there.
Don't spoil it for me, but I actually kind of figured it out, I think. Just from what I've seen of it.
Okay.
But don't say anything. Because if I'm wrong, I don't want to know I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, good. We did mention Mass Effect earlier, and for me, this was just the idea of the player, you as the player, sort of creating your own romance as opposed to having it baked into the plot. It's an interesting mechanic because you can either... There's a lot of freedom in there, especially with the options presented to you in Mass Effect.
The issue to me, and it's not necessarily an issue, it's a trade-off. If you have a romance that's baked into the plot, you can give it a lot more depth, and you can explore it much more deeply and integrate it more tightly into what's going on. If you have a multiple choice one where you have multiple different characters, you have multiple different plot lines, those romances give you a lot more. You can have a lot more options for them to customize it, but you never really get to explore it in depth. It always feels surface level, and to me, they feel more tacked on.
Interesting. But not the first time I've heard that criticism. So I sort of felt during my playthrough of Mass Effect that the character or characters your version of Shepard romances in the game, it was basically each option had its own pros and cons, and I also felt that the amount of attention given to that romantic storyline for that character varied in terms of emotional depth and just gravitas, as it were.
Well, that's another issue. That's another worry when you do one where you give a bunch of choices is, well, a lot of times they're going to have a character that would fit better in the story, and they're going to get more... It's going to feel more right, and they'll get more integration into the content than other relationships necessarily would.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. So, in my playthrough of Mass Effect, I chose to romance Liara throughout the entire 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it felt like that pairing felt not the most correct, that's not the word I'm looking for, but made the most sense. Because for me, there was a lot of emotional weight behind it. That romance option to me felt the most organic. The way that developed. And so for me, I felt like I got a lot, both as an experience and emotionally, from that romance option than had I chose any of the other characters.
Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I mean when I say you can't get quite as much depth in a multiple choice one as when you bake it into the story?
Sort of. So elaborate on that a little bit. I think I see where you're going with it, but elaborate.
This isn't the best example because I don't necessarily think it's the best told romance, but the one that our viewers and everybody's going to know very well is Final Fantasy X. It has a very strong romance theme. It's a huge focus for the story. They build on it throughout the whole game.
Yep.
And because they build on it throughout the whole game, because it's because it's so tightly integrated into the story, you get a lot more depth to it than you do one of the multiple choice ones in a Dragon Age or a Mass Effect. To me, you get to explore it more, you get to learn more about the characters, you get to do more with it because they know you have to see all of this. They know that you're going to get these, and they don't have to try to make it fit across multiple characters. They can go, this is what we can tie the story into this, not just tack this on top of what's already going to be happening.
Okay. I can see that.
The pro to having a game where you can sort of craft your own romance or select who, get to know the characters and go, I kind of want to pursue stuff story-wise with this person. The upside to that is, especially if, with BioWare particularly, they're really good about sexual orientation options.
Yep.
Where it's not, well, you're playing a dude, so obviously you gotta play it, you gotta date one of the ladies. Also, and I don't know if the games do this either, if it gives you the option to not romance anybody, then that's good too, because as opposed to going, everybody loves romance, look at those two attractive characters. They're gonna get together, don't you like it?
There's positive and negative. I'm not trying to be negative towards the multiple choice ones. In fact, in a lot of ways, for the video game producers, it's better because Dejah's already brought this up as a great example. If you don't buy into the romance, the game does nothing for you if it's a baked-in romance. If it's a game like Final Fantasy VIII, where it's a huge part of it, and you don't like the romance, that's not who you would have gotten with. You don't like those characters, the game's over for you. Like, that's it. There's nothing left.
Well, I feel like the upside to here's the romance that we're doing, we're writing it as part of the story, is that you can focus on it and hopefully write a really solid romance. Because that's your focus. As opposed to, I gotta write like 6 with multiple options for what you say and what date you go on, and if you wore the blue shirt or the orange shirt, oh my god. And not that they're necessarily bad, but I can see folks, like, I guess it's like writing a choose-your-own adventure story versus writing just a straight-up regular novel. And that's why I like both of them, but sometimes I feel like I might be more invested in the ones where I get to make the choices, because I can put myself, like, in their shoes.
Which, for some players, that's really, really important. They see themselves in there, and so perhaps the emotional investment is, I guess, deeper, maybe a bit more personal.
I'd say representation matters.
Absolutely.
Well, the last big romance I got into, and this is more of a in-joke, I suppose, for Ronnie, in a game was... when we were recently playing South Park: The Fractured Butthole, I totally shipped our little black trans girl with Mysterion. Like, there's no romance in the game at all, but I was like, nope, they're together. They don't know it yet, but they are.
They're so cute together. But we'll show you pictures of our character later. But yes, I mean, when you have a bunch of choices, a bunch of characters that you get to choose from, like, you can choose who is more appealing to you, the player. Like, who do you like? Who do you prefer? And that's good. Like, being able to make the choices. Like, neither is wrong. They're just for different types of games.
Oh, yes.
Like, the Mass Effect and Dragon Age games themselves are not super tightly focused games. You have a bunch of choices for where you want to go, how you want to go about things, so the romance choices being part of it feels supernatural. In a very strong story-driven RPG, it feels better to have the romance tightly tied into the narrative because everything else is. So, I mean, it's just for different games.
Yes. And it's a take your pick, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yes, it's all about which position's your favorite. That's what it is.
Yep. And I think on that note, we will cut to break here, and we will continue this discussion in the second half. In the meantime, you'll have some music, as is per usual here on Downloadable Content. You're listening to episode 2 of season 8 of DLC. We're talking about romance. We'll be back. Welcome back to Downloadable Content, talking about romance in video games. During the break, I stuffed my face with a handful of Lindt chocolate truffles given to me by my lovely, because that is my kryptonite, apparently.
They are pretty good.
They are very good, and when I get them by the bagful, it's like, oh boy, this could easily become dinner if I let it.
You're an adult. You can make those decisions.
Yes, I could. I'm an adult. No one can tell me what to do. Except maybe my waistline and my wallet, but whatever.
Yo, that's what was it? What is the meme I saw on Facebook? When you talk to a child and tell them being an adult means that you can eat ice cream every day for dinner. But being an adult means you have to buy the ice cream.
Yes. And you become sad. Like, oh, I have to get it?
Mm-hmm.
I can't just summon it into being?
You can't just...
And eventually you get tired of the ice cream. And you want something different.
When does that happen, Dejah?
If I ate it for dinner every day, I'd get tired of it. I don't eat ice cream every day. I just still like ice cream.
So there you go. So yes, we're going to continue our discussion of romance in video games. I thought we had a pretty good first half, and we'll continue that into the second half. Other romances that we personally have found very much enjoyable. So you had a couple of ideas over the break, Ronnie and Dejah, so I will yield to you to open up this second half.
You want to lead with our favorite monsters, Dejah?
I think that's you talking about Undertale?
Yes.
Okay. So I know the previous episode had us talking chock full of Undertale goodness, but we didn't get quite into the is it quite unrequited, or is it mutual romance between the kingdom scientist Alphys and the super badass warrior Undyne, because Alphys clearly has it bad for Undyne, but I think Undyne's a little...
No, they get together. They kiss in the end.
I know, but you have to go through the super secret stuff.
Oh, okay.
They have to go on the date where Undyne kind of comes off clueless a little bit. Hence why I say, is it unrequited?
Yes, they're both very much in love with each other, and they are both very much oblivious to each other's feelings. And you have to go and fix things because you are a protagonist and you wear the protagonist pants. And that means you need to go and make everybody's lives better.
And when you go on the date with her as Frisk, all of the items she's trying to woo you with are specifically catered to her fishy amour.
Wow, look at this. I have magic spear fixing things. And here's some armor cream. And this is for your scales. None of these are useful for you, are they?
Ooh, Undyne.
There you go. There's the voice.
Are we gonna go watch some anime? Yeah, if you ever play that game with us, you're gonna have to sit through. Ooh,
it's like if Undertale had voice acting. Well, it doesn't have very slight voices in it.
If you count little beep noises.
No.
Oh, okay, Metaton, yeah.
Metaton and Flowey both speak. Only one
does laugh a little bit.
Well, no, Flowey has the "That's a wonderful idea."
See, I never remember hearing that. Anyway, we don't want to get too much into Undertale.
Last episode.
It's what happens in the genocide run after you kill Toriel and finish the ruins.
Okay. Says the person that didn't play the genocide.
I remember it better than you do. It's funny
how that works. Blah. You did research before the episode.
Harumph.
Okay.
I want a divorce.
Well, two romances that I want to talk about. The first one I'll say, because I feel it's remarkably well done, is Transistor, an indie darling from a couple of years back, where you play as Red, this opera singer, who has a giant sword that Cloud would absolutely love.
Yes.
And
Yes, he would.
Yes, and the Cloud has the soul of your dead love, who's just murdered in front of you as the game begins, trapped inside of it, and he is the narrator for the game. Because your voice is sealed away, and you can't speak or sing anymore. And the very end of the game, after basically your world dies from the apocalypse, and there's nothing really left, and you kill yourself with the sword, so it will absorb you so that you can live inside of it forever with the man you love. Because there's nothing left for you in this world.
That was a gut-wrenching ending, though.
Yes, it was. But it was remarkably well done, wasn't it? Especially for a game that doesn't have a lot of traditional exposition.
Yes. And I think there were some other bits of implied romance.
Oh no! One of the first. I think she's the first or second boss, but there's a woman who was in love with you, and she's the one who ended up getting your boyfriend murdered at the beginning of the game because she was basically wanted you.
Yes, it was a crime born out of jealousy.
Born out of jealousy and passion. Which seems to go along with the generally noir themes in Transistor.
Yes.
Which is funny for a game that seems very, which is very computery and kind of cyberpunky to call it noir, but it definitely has some of those themes in it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
It's one of the reasons why I enjoy it so much is, the setting absolutely fits.
So we've all said one. Before I go on to another one, Brian, why don't you take the floor?
All right. Hold on. Well, we've talked about various relationships in games, whether, either popular games or, at the very least, well-known games, varying degrees of popularity. But, we haven't really touched upon really any of the classics. Like, some of the earliest indicators of a romance in video games, you have to go back to Nintendo. The whole Link Zelda storyline that has been in for 30 years, Mario and Peach.
Brian, men and women can just be friends. They don't all have to be dating.
Yes, that is true.
I'm also just trolling you, don't mind me.
You do that very well. Have you played the Zelda series?
Yes, I have. I have very much.
Despite it being etched on your skin?
Yes, I do have a Zelda 2.
It's not a couple's tattoo at all.
But
just because I have Link on my own.
There's the Zelda games have varying degrees of romance. Some of them have very explicit romance between Link and Zelda. Some have Link romancing somebody else, and some don't have romance at all. It all depends on the game.
It does depend on the game. It's interesting. The game that I'm thinking about most recently, though, Breath of the Wild, which is a fantastic game.
I had so much fun with that one.
It was an excellent game. Far better than the new Mario. Shots fired.
I own Mario Odyssey. I haven't started it yet, but I really like the Zelda-Link dynamic in Breath of the Wild through the flashbacks.
Yes.
When you have to go and take you get these pictures because for some reason your Sheikah Slate also functions as a camera.
Because why not?
Because why not? You go to these locations and it triggers a memory within Link, and I love how that relationship develops over the course of these flashbacks. It's really well done.
And I still found their relationship cute, but I also, this is again just silent protagonist concept. It's kind of hilarious that she'll be like scolding you or getting all science nerdy on you, which I love that she was basically a science nerd in this game.
Yes.
And then you're just kind of standing there, not saying anything. Just like, oh, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, that is pretty cool about the praying and the science and the guardians and stuff. All right, I'll be over here with my horse.
Well, this particular game, to me, it felt like the Zelda-Link relationship was taken to a level beyond superficial. Like, Zelda is... This is, to me... I mean, I haven't played all of the Zelda games, so for me, this was a game where Zelda did not feel like an accessory.
Well, I would say that Skyward Sword kind of started that.
And that's fair. I haven't finished Skyward Sword, so that's just from my own frame of reference.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to see Zelda play a large role in many of the games, but there's a couple that she's already played large roles in. The Wind Waker series, all three games, because I include Spirit Tracks in that. And in Spirit Tracks, you actually get to play as Zelda. Zelda and Link are a team throughout the entire game. The romance between the two of them with him and Tetra is implied in Wind Waker, but Skyward Sword, it's very obvious. Like, yeah, Link is totally going to be banging Zelda, and that's where the Hyrulean royal family's coming from. Like, that's just what's happening.
Yeah, she definitely digs you.
Oh, yeah. No, she's got a thing for you before everything even starts in the game.
Right. And, like, it was just very nice to see Zelda in Breath of the Wild actually having a larger role than just the thing you have to rescue. Like,
true.
Like, she was her own person, with her own agency, and just you get to see the pressure she's under, not just from her father, but the pressure she puts on herself. And, watching that relationship develop with Link, I just thought was very well done.
By the way, screw her dad. I want to go back and beat the crap out of that ghost by the end of the game.
Or when you first see him at the start of the game in his
just keep hitting
when he's
him.
Like, I'm the friendly old man, and then you're like, no, you're that asshole who ruined everything.
Now I'm gonna go and hang out with Mipha.
So there. You jerk. But yes, so it's just interesting to see that those two, especially in Breath of the Wild, I thought that for me, having played Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, it was nice. Oh, Zelda has agency in this game. And I thought that made the relationship between her and Link in Breath of the Wild that much better.
I would agree with that statement.
So
it's the relationship between Link and Zelda. Well, the relationship between Link and Zelda and all of the champions is the underpinnings of that entire game. It's the spine that makes Breath of the Wild work.
Yes. So that is my contribution for that. So I want to shift gears. We've been talking about romantic storylines and romantic couples, as it were, most of the way through. But now I want to shift gears and talk about the type of game that we call dating sims. which just doing a search on Steam for games that fall under this category, it's very, very obvious that the vast majority of them are heavily, heavily anime influenced.
Mm-hmm. And they range in quality very severely.
I don't know why that's the case, not being too familiar with this genre myself.
I think it's because a lot of... I mean, I'm not hugely into the genre, but when I first learned about it, they were all... Like, this was back in, like, the late 90s. Everything in the genre basically came from Japan. Not that we didn't necessarily have ones like that, I guess. But, I mean, now that pretty much anybody can kind of make a video game, I think that's how we have so many Steam ones. But your Tokimeki Memorial ones... It's the only series I think I remember the name of, but you know, most of them were these little anime visual novels where your faceless, bland guy and there's cute moe girls everywhere for you to hook up with. Or there's always a Hatoful boyfriend.
Okay. Let's not go into Hatoful boyfriend. If we're gonna talk into
Google it,
Hatoful,
everybody, you're welcome.
If we're gonna look into Hatoful boyfriend, we may as well talk about Doki Doki Literature Club.
I haven't played that yet, so I can. But I totally want to.
But it is. It's like I just doing a search on Steam for anything romance or dating sims, and they're very, very much anime inspired with very.
Well, I mean the genre pretty much originated in Japan, and it's a huge genre in Japan, far larger than it is here.
There's even an anime/manga that's specifically about a kid who only plays dating sims. He hates real women. 2D women are the only thing, and I love that series.
That is one anime about that. There are multiple.
Yeah, okay, well...
There's a bunch of them. That's just the best one.
And they all range not only in quality, but, from just your basic, from, being sort of high, flirty, cute to, we're going into hentai land here. I tried downloading, this was back in college, this was like 10 years ago maybe. I tried, they weren't quite as easily, obtainable back then, or at least if they were, then I had no clue, because there wasn't Steam or anything. But I tried downloading a hentai one once, and the problem was, I think it was translated, but I had no clue what was going on, and it was not a good one in my opinion, because it was basically, I was just this dude at the school who would just walk into rooms, and it'd be like two girls just going at it in this room, and I'd be like, why? What's going on? Like, I'm not actually trying to date anybody here. I'm just walking into... This is like, what, the sex school? I don't know what's going on. So I stopped playing after like 10 minutes. Like, oh, alright. But...
I mean, there are good dating sims.
Definitely. That just wasn't one of them.
Yeah, just like there are bad kinds of every other game, but dating sims is one where there is such a deluge of them that it's hard to separate the wheat from the chaff.
For me in a dating sim, you have to have good writing.
I am a writer, Brian. It occasionally comes out.
It occasionally comes out. Nicely done.
Thank you.
But like the one game that I see occasionally pop up when I'm playing a game on Steam, because I know some of my friends have it, is Honey Pop.
Yay! That's my jam!
Which is a puzzle game. I've never played this, but just a quick look at it, it's a puzzle game, it looks like, and my immediate thought was, did somebody turn Candy Crush or Bejeweled into, hot anime romance?
Basically, yeah.
Basically, okay,
although it's alright, it's kind of cool how they've... Huh?
I have it pulled up right here. You put 88 hours into Honey Pop.
I think I played it twice.
I just felt it was important that people knew.
How much did I put into Honeycomb Studio? Probably over 100.
96.
Oh, what? I gotta play it more.
You got another
4
hours.
more, Dejah.
Well, so basically, it is like Bejeweled or any sort of match 3 to 5, game. But each little color and shape or what have you is associated with a personality attribute. And there's 12 women, I believe, although 8 is what you start with, and then you have to unlock them by doing certain things. Yep. And each, they sort of come in pairs with 2 of the 8 characters. You get the most points from matching. The red ones are sexuality tokens, and my favorite character, Jessie, she's the MILF one, even though she's maybe 31 years old. It's a whole other thing. Or maybe she's more 34. Still, she's in her 30s, and she's an ex-porn star, but that's a whole other thing. But she's my favorite one. I adore her. I don't know why. Or I should say I do know why, but I won't go into that. And then there's another character, the teacher, the Asian teacher, because you have to have the Japanese woman in there. She likes the sexuality.
You have to have all the tropes. If you're doing,
it does have the.
Yes.
What is kind of cool about it is that they're not all white chicks, which again, a lot of if you look at a lot of the anime ones, they're all gonna kind of look the same, and then maybe the
most
might be a little
most American-made ones are going to have you're gonna have the black girl, you're gonna have the Asian girl, you're gonna nail each of these fetishes.
And a Latina. There's the drugged up party chick. There's the video game nerd. There's the girl next door type. There's the MILF type.
Which, it's great to have representation, but is it really any good when they're basically put in there to fulfill fetishes?
Yeah, good point. I don't know. Maybe I'm so jaded by just, again, all the anime girls that...
It'd be better if you could choose what race... It would be better if you could choose what race your character was before going and dating all these people. That would be representation.
You have a face. So I suppose your own face is your representation?
Not quite the same thing, and you know it.
Well, I know. There's also a blue alien chick in there. That's representation. And a cat girl.
Well, for all the... Well, I was going to say, so all the furries get some representation.
Oh, jeez.
And all of the aliens that came from space. So Ryoko has representation.
Oh, Ryoko. But, so it works like a lot of dating sims will, in the sense of you get to ask them a couple questions. You can give them a gift. You can give them food or drinks, which give you extra sort of question points, I'll call them. That's not what they call them in the game, or energy points. You can only ask them a certain amount of questions before they're like, I'm tired, you gotta go. And so you can ask them your basic dating sim questions. What's your birthday? What's your favorite season? What do you do for a living? How old are you? What's your cup size? Because I feel like that's a required one for all of the games. And then you get points to try to get them to say yes on a date by, sometimes when you ask them a question, they'll then ask you a question like, what's my birthday? And you have to remember it. Which isn't too hard if you pay attention. But if you're not playing it for 88 hours at a time, then you might forget.
Well, yes. And also because I'm assuming, because it's obviously in the style of anime, there's also probably a great deal of humor in there as well.
No, there is actually. So the first character you meet is Q. She is a love fairy, and she sees you in a bar.
A very dirty love fairy.
She sees you in a bar, and you come up to her, and one of the options of things you can say is you're really pretty, and so basically either you try to act smooth and she can see that really you're not smooth at all. You act super nervous and awkward and she's like, oh boy, okay, there's a lot more help here. So she kind of like flirts with you and you awkwardly flirt back. And then you wake up the next day, now she's got pink hair and like a little negligee and whatever, and I forget, she probably has fairy wings. And
she does have fairy wings.
And she's only wearing panties and her little baby doll lingerie, and you're like, what is going on? Why do you have wings? I don't know. I think I'm still sleeping or something like that. And she basically tells you that she's taking pity on you and she's going to help you get laid, basically. And so she gives you a phone, or the honeybee or something it's called, to keep track of the girls and all the information.
Because that's not sketchy at all.
I know, right? Where are they right now? Q knows.
So there.
Like, I had way too much fun playing it, and I feel like out of Ronnie and my friends who played it, more women have played it than guys, which I don't know. I don't really know why that is. Like, we apparently like animated boobs. I guess.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's it's like, I don't know, not having played any of these games myself, it's like I don't know who the market is for these types of games. So it's like
people who like boobs.
Okay, so most...
Yeah, because if you date them enough till you get 5 hearts, then they're basically like, want to go back to your place? And that's when there's no point limit on it. Basically, you just have to fill up a bar, but the bar will keep going down.
Basically,
sort of unlimited things. And then halfway, the bra comes off, and at the end, they orgasm in the pants.
Yes, basically, you are bringing them off using Bejeweled. Bejeweled is for orgasms.
And I'm not gonna lie, the vocal acting is really good.
I don't remember this being a hentai podcast, though. I believe we were talking about romance.
That's why I wasn't gonna bring it up. I blame Brian.
That, it's... You can blame me all you like. It's just... It's a significant category of game that occasionally pops up from time to time.
True.
I got two subjects I'd like to bring up, and I think we're probably getting to the point where we're going to be winding down soon.
That's fair.
So, one, I'll bring up a topic I think we all might have something to say about, but where would you like to see romance go in the future of gaming? What is missing in video games right now, and what would you like to see?
Don't all jump at once.
I brought it up. I figured I'd let you guys.
I mean, I guess for me, since I tend to only play RPGs, so for that genre, it would be nice to see more non-heterosexual relationships. Like, I know that that's something that's happening in games more often, but at least I haven't heard of a RPG that's not like a Mass Effect or something. I guess I mean JRPGs, which is why it's never going to happen, because they have their own sort of issues with LGBT stuff over there. But that would be something that I would like to see. Or somebody to make an independent one over here that's JRPG-like. And, a female badass ranger and like her thief friend, and they totally fall for each other or something like that.
Branching off of that, because that's what I was going to open with as well to answer Ronnie's question. We're seeing it happen more and more on the indie side of things, I feel. Not necessarily so much on the AAA front, because it's us outside of BioWare.
And they've gotten a lot of weird crap from people about like, why'd you put in the option to like, I got this elf guy, he's hitting on me, I don't want that, and they're kind of like, so don't date him, I don't see what your problem is. Like, BioWare's been really cool about all this stupid flack, but I would think that might be part of the reason some companies don't do it, because like they see their demographic as not wanting that, I guess.
And that's just it. It's like, outside of BioWare, I don't really see too many other AAA developers taking that plunge into creating storylines, romantic storylines, which involve non-heterosexual relationships. And I think it's something that is very, very sorely missing. I mean, we've been saying it all throughout this episode. Representation matters. But on the AAA side, that seems to be a very, very slow grind. That's something that it doesn't appear that a lot of AAA developers are willing to do, because it's a financial risk. And I think it's to the industry's detriment.
I would agree with that. Sorry?
Go on.
No, I was just going to second what you were saying. I had nothing.
I feel like there. I agree so much, but because Ronnie and I talk about this sometimes, about how I always say, oh, I want to play a game that's like this, or why doesn't somebody do this? Like, with these AAA things. And he'll usually go, because the market's hard enough right now, they're barely making their money back, and so they don't want to take risks. That's why they'd rather do Assassin's Creed 25 and Call of Duty 137 instead of something that is particularly niche, or could be considered niche.
I was gonna say, to go off of that for mine, like, we first of all, as you get, like, we need more sexuality options. We need bisexual characters. We need gay characters. We need all of that.
There aren't stereotypes, by the way.
Yes,
like the bisexual can't just be like, I hook up with everybody.
No, and you don't just have one token one.
Yeah.
But also, as we mentioned briefly in Honey Pop, we need more. We need Latinos. We need African Americans, Black people. We need all of these different things, but we need them to not be stereotypes. We need them to be actual people. We need them to be treated like all the other characters are. But finally, for my thing, and that we have the first step with Catherine, I want games that talk frankly about adult situations. I want ones that go beyond the chase. I want to see an actual relationship, not just they get together and that's the end of it. Even if the story continues, they get together and that's where you don't see any more for the relationship. No.
Or the relationship just stays stagnant at this perfect, happy
relationships have issues. People have issues, and people who love each other have issues, and hopefully they work through them, but those issues need to be shown. Things aren't perfect, and showing that in a game and having you work through it in the game, like, this is... so many games talk about having adult content, but adult content for them means, oh, we're going to show sex. We're not showing actual adult content, adult relationships. A relationship between two people, honestly, and showing that and having you work through that. And part of it's because video games are escapism. But if you're going to have games showing relationships, this is something we should be touching on, and Catherine shows there's a niche for it. You might... I doubt you're going to see this in AAA titles, but
we should.
There's room in the AA where Atlas is doing Catherine. They were successful enough. There's definitely space if you try. You just can't expect to make $1 billion off of it. Keep your expectations mild.
Well, Ronnie knows that once or twice a year I usually complain about how that's what I want in my anime, and that's why I don't watch too many shows nowadays, because I want to see a relationship grow and change and mature, and how there's ebb and flow and all this stuff, and usually my favorite pairings are ones where I get to see that, as opposed to, yay, we got together, the end.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Hell, even include, poly relationships,
Oh Oh,
why
absolutely.
not? It's
meant to mention that when I mentioned bisexual and gay, and then my brain just completely did not go there.
I don't know about you, but when I played Persona 4, I wished... Actually, that... I feel kind of dumb that we never actually brought up that one, because you get to date people in that one, right, Ronnie?
I'm sorry, I was looking at something. What did you say?
Persona 4.
Yeah, you date people in all the Persona series, but disappointingly, the only one where you can date a same-sex person is Persona 3, and that's only because the robot will date your character regardless.
And I definitely wish that, because when I was playing Persona 4, I wanted my character to have a poly triad with, why can't I think of their darn names? Ronnie, you remember who they are. Yankee kid who's not actually a punk, and possibly trans male character.
You are giving me way too much credit, because I do not remember their names, but I'm looking it up now.
Naoki? No. Mayoko and Kanji.
Yes, there you go.
Yes, they were the best.
I love that. I
with them
Persona 4, but
because
do not remember.
I think they were kind of already crushing on each other, and then I wanted to totally get in there because honestly, they were the two best characters in that game. And I'm sorry for anybody listening who's a huge fan of that and is screaming at the podcast of why can't they remember the names.
Well, I suppose this is part of also what I wanted to bring up as my other major point, which was the fandom and shipping. That's a thing.
Oh, that's a huge thing.
I shipped Zelda and Urbosa just because I saw how Urbosa was looking at Zelda when she was sleeping in her lap. That's all I based it on. From Breath of the Wild, I should say.
Oh yeah, shipping's a thing in any fandom, really, any media, whether it's television, movies, video games. Video games are not immune to people shipping things.
No, not at all. And that's, I mean, like I said, talking romance in video games, we've talked about games that integrate romance into the plot. You have games where you have romance as an auxiliary thing, where you can make the choices and choose the people. But players are always going to see innuendos where there may not have intentionally been any, and put these characters together because they would be the cutest ever.
Yeah,
it happens in every.
game. They fight all the time, but wouldn't their hate sex be so good?
Mm-hmm.
I'm right about it.
I mean, hell. I'm pretty sure when all of us were younger, we probably saw some pictures of Cloud and Sephiroth. That was a thing.
When I was 12, I guess one couldn't say it was accidentally, but I didn't know what the term lemon was, and I read a story. God damn it, Brian.
What the hell was that, Brian?
So, this was back in the AOL days. I was like, I'm going to read some Final Fantasy VII fanfiction. I like Final Fantasy VII. This was literally the first fanfic I'd ever read. It was called, A Night with Tifa, which really should have set me off. But I was 12, and I was innocent at the time, and I didn't
Not
think
anymore!
And here's the thing, I read the whole thing, but I got really sad after, and I don't think I cried, but, I was so affected by it, and not in ooh, that was hot way, but no, what did I do? What did I read? Why did I keep reading it? And really, it wasn't even it was pretty vanilla and standard, but I shipped Cloud and Aeris, so I was like, this is bullshit. What is this?
I played... it's no secret, I'm a massive Resident Evil fan. You get...
You gotta play that card game.
Yes, we get the Leon and Ada at the end, toward the end of Resident Evil 2. And then you have Resident Evil 4 come out, and Leon has to constantly rescue the character Ashley.
Yeah.
Ashley. And so, back in the days when I was writing fanfic...
By the way, Who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, fuck her. I haven't even played the game, and I know fuck her.
Yeah, just no.
Literally.
Blow on her toe and she dies. But so I'm back in my fanfic writing days. I was writing a novelization to Resident Evil 4, and I was trying to play up a bit the Leon Ada relationship because see Resident Evil 2. And I was getting comments on FFnet telling me, why aren't you, write more?
But like
Leon.
Ashley and Leon forever.
Yeah, and
Their love is pure.
I was getting into fierce AOL debates. No, Leon and wrong, sir, wrong. See Resident Evil 2, play the damn game. The Ashley and wrong. No. And I was like the biggest Leon Ada defender ever. Wrong.
Like one of the pure ship.
Yeah, one of the few, really passionate no, Ada, no, Ashley, Leon, OTP. Sorry, try again later.
So, fandoms. I love them, but I hate them.
Then don't go on Tumblr.
Oh, I'm on there for South Park right now, and it's actually, weirdly healthy. I haven't come across anything really terrible. There might be drama for, a day, and then it goes away. And everyone's just like, this show's awesome. But I have been part of bad ones.
I think we're pretty much done here.
I was gonna say, if you had anything else you wanted to add, or are we done with we're gonna wind this down?
I think we're good.
You think we're good. All right. So, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts on this episode or any other episode of downloadable content, you can get a hold of us on our website, dlcpodcast.com. Click the feedback button. Let us know what you think. Give us your thoughts. Yell at us. Whatever. It's all good. Every single episode can be found there, as well as on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. It's all there for you, dlcpodcast.com. So, all it remains for me to do is to thank Ronnie and Dejah for being on this episode. So,
this is the couples episode, because we're married.
Yeah! Yay! A winner is you! I'm Brian. Have a good one, everybody!